Canadians need to understand clearly, without any ambiguity, unless Canadians elect a stable national government, Mr. Ignatieff will form a coalition with the NDP and Bloc Québécois. They tried it before. It is clear to anyone who's been listening, they will try it again. And next time, if given the chance, they will do it in a way that no one will be able to stop. We need to ensure that our government is stable, national, and wholly committed to the unity of our country. Imagine a coalition of arch-centralists and Quebec sovereignists trying to work together. The only thing they'll be able to agree on is to spend more money and to raise taxes to pay for it.
Prime Minister, the Liberal Party has put out a statement today saying, and I quote, that they will not enter into a coalition with other Federalist parties. They go on to say a coalition is a legitimate option, issue by issue collaboration, and he categorically rules out a coalition or formal arrangement with the Bloc Québécois. Two questions. First, is it your position that Mr. Ignatieff is just not telling the truth about that? And second, since you as opposition leader did cooperate with both the Bloc and the NDP, why should Canadians believe that you would act any differently if you're returned with a minority and need the support of other parties?
Well, there's a difference between working with other parties and forming a coalition. 2004, we did not form a coalition. 2006, we did not form a coalition. 2008, we did not form a coalition. Every time we said we wouldn't, and we didn't. And they're saying the same thing this time. In 2008, the Liberal Party said it would not be forming such a coalition, and after the election, that's exactly what it did, and tried to take power without a democratic mandate. This time, as you know, the Liberals have kept that door open, and that didn't work, so now they're trying to run on it as a hidden agenda.
You're just saying you just don't buy it? You just don't believe it?
Well, I'm saying the record is clear. We heard all these denials in 2008, and then they all signed on a deal, went on national television to say they were taking government even though they had lost the election. And the Liberals were doing it with the NDP and the Bloc Québécois. They have been keeping this option open ever since. They've been keeping an option open for months. They've been keeping the option open for days. And now Mr. Ignatieff puts out a press release to try and make it a hidden agenda because he couldn't deny it in front of the cameras. You know, nobody's going to be fooled. Everyone knows their record. They'll deny it during an election, and they'll do it after if they can get away with it. And the only way Canadians can be sure it does not happen is to elect a stable national government. And the only way they can get that is by electing a stable national conservative government, because we are the only ones who can form that kind of a government.
Mr. Harper, the Liberals also said today, made the statement that a coalition is a legitimate option in our parliamentary democracy. I'm wondering if you agree with that statement.
The reason the Liberal Party throws that a little extra tidbit in their press release, now that they're having yet another position on the coalition, is because they're still trying to keep the door open. Because they will do it if they get a chance. Let me be very clear about what is illegitimate about this exercise of coalition. We need to be very clear about this. Two things that are very illegitimate, and Canadians understand it. First of all, you don't try and form a government if you lost the election. That is not legitimate. If Canadians elect the other party, even by a minority, you respect that judgment. It is illegitimate to attempt to overturn that. And if you want to overturn it, you go back to the people and get a mandate to do so. Secondly, it is not legitimate. Maybe the word is legitimate isn't the best word. It is not principled to have a party dedicated to the breakup of the country having a hand in the running of the government. You know, in our system, I know a lot of people don't like it, in our system we accept that people who want to break up the country can sit in Parliament. But you can break up the country or you can govern the country, but you can't do both. It's pretty fundamental. And that is not principled and, broadly speaking, not legitimate. But both of these things, the Liberal Party attempted to do publicly, clearly, without any equivocation. And they have continued to try and keep the door open to that because they intend to do it if they don't win.
Clarification on a coalition. And could you respond to Mr. Harper, who said you will deny it during a campaign, do it after the election? He says it's your hidden agenda.
Well, I didn't want to spend 36 days with any ambiguity, and this is an election about democracy. I feel I owe it to the Canadian people to be perfectly clear, so they know what they're doing when they vote for the Liberal Party. And if they want an alternative to the Harper government, a compassionate, responsible alternative to the Conservative government, to the Harper government, to a government which has betrayed the principles for which this Parliament stands, then they should vote for a Liberal government. And it'll be a Liberal government. A government composed of Liberal members of Parliament who have run on the platform that we have presented. And I wanted to make that clear. Mr. Harper has engaged in a systematic pattern of falsehood about this, and I want to make the record clear so we can have a get on and debate the issues that really matter to Canadians.
Mr. Ignatieff, for days, you've been dodging the question on the coalition. You wouldn't answer the question until this morning. You say this is not about a press release, but you used a press release to actually take a stand on the coalition. Is this too little too late, and how do you think this is going to hurt you on the campaign?
That's a genuinely funny question. It is day zero of a 36-stand campaign. Unless I'm much mistaken, this is my first appearance in campaign mode. So I'm delighted that you think it's too little too late. It's one of the best moments. I'm going to remember that throughout the campaign.
I didn't say I think it's too
little. But let's be very clear.
Is it?
This is an election about democracy. The Canadian people are owed clarity of purpose on this. I made it clear all last week I want to form a Liberal government. Now Canadians know exactly what that means. They know exactly my commitment to the rules of our democratic life. Mr. Harper thinks I don't understand the rules of democracy. I understand them better than he does.
You say that Mr. Harper you want clarity on the issue of the coalition. Mr. Harper today said that you're actually not being clear, that your statement to say that you released sorry, I've got feedback here. The statement that you released today saying that you aren't going to form a coalition is a statement on paper, but he says that you're actually not being clear, that you say that, but your past experience would suggest otherwise. So can you make it very clear for us today what your position is if you were to form a minority? What is your position today, and how can Canadians trust that that's in fact what you believe?
Well, let me just repeat. Whoever leads the party that wins the most seats on Election Day should be called on to form the government. That's rule number one. And if I have the honor to be asked to form a government, then I will form a government that seeks the confidence of the House. And I will not seek a coalition with the Bloc, and I will not seek a coalition with the NDP. We will seek to find the confidence of the House by seeking the agreement of other parties on a legislative, on a budget, for example. And that'll be perfectly clear. And Canadians know that if they vote for us, that's what's going to happen.
History with coalition talk has been a little bit murky. You were against it, you were for it, you categorically said you would rule it out, then you said it was legitimate and you were open to a coalition if necessary, but not necessarily a coalition. How can Canadians trust you on this issue right now? How can they believe what you're saying?
Because I'm looking in the eye right now, and I've made a formal commitment to the Canadian people on the very first day of an election campaign, which is about democracy. And if you respect democracy, then your word has to be your bond in this business. Mr. Harper will have to explain his interesting backstory on coalition. But I've made it perfectly clear today where we stand, how we will fight, and how we will win. Thank you very much.
Mr. Ignatieff issued a denial that is actually not a denial. Read carefully, Mr. Ignatieff's statement clearly outlines their agenda to reform and reimpose their reckless coalition from 2008. This, of course, should come as a surprise to no one. They denied it before, only then to do it. And they will do it again. Do you really want to take that risk? Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Ignatieff does not understand, but Canadians understand, that in our country, this country, Governments should be formed by the party that actually wins the election, not by a backroom deal in Parliament after the election.
Now, my friends, I'm ready to serve as your Prime Minister, and my team is ready too. New Democrats have grown as the needs and priorities of Canadians have grown. Today's New Democrats are focused on middle-class families and ready to work for you in Parliament and in Cabinet. And so I'm asking Canadians to join me to defeat Stephen Harper, regardless of who you voted for in the past. If you voted Liberal before, but have some doubt about the latest Liberal leader, Michael Ignatieff, you're not alone. Mr. Ignatieff's words don't match his actions. He's betting you don't notice. He's betting you don't care. Mr. Ignatieff, saying one thing and doing another is not Canadian leadership. Now, if you have voted Bloc in the past, I invite you to help me replace this Conservative government. In the last two elections, it's been shown very clearly that a vote for the Bloc can't stop Stephen Harper from becoming Prime Minister. It can't stop him from implementing an agenda that most Quebecers are against. This time we have to do something different. This time it's not enough to keep Stephen Harper from his majority. This time we have to replace him. Now, I know that Canadians want someone in Ottawa who will work with others and get things done. I'm proud of what New Democrats have been able to accomplish by working together. These accomplishments are the cornerstone of the leadership I'm offering in this election. I'm asking for a mandate to lead the next government. And if that turns out to be a minority parliament, as Prime Minister, you can count on me to reach out to all members of Parliament who believe in building a better Canada. Yes. And together, we will provide an alternative to a Harper-led government, whether it's on a case-by-case basis, as has been done in the last 5 years, or more stable arrangements. I will work with the mandate you give me. Yeah! Now, this is a key difference between Stephen Harper and me. Stephen Harper sees cooperation as a weakness. I view it as a very Canadian strength. Yeah! And while Stephen Harper helped insiders and the well-connected through this recession, I say, now it's your turn. Yeah. And so I'll stop the divisive political games and bring your members of Parliament together to deliver results for you. Yeah! My friends, in this election, we're going to fix what's broken in Ottawa, and we're going to do it the way that only New Democrats can, by defeating Conservatives right across Canada.
In our system of elections, you elect a government, and then, the idea of a coalition that wasn't announced beforehand. For instance, in France, you have a system where you have, the right unites and the left unites, and you have two choices. And here, it isn't that system. So, it's not entirely clear. You talk about something that happened in 2004, but going into this election, is the idea of a coalition excluded at this point?
Ask Harper, ask Ignatieff, ask Layton. If they propose something like that, we'll look if it's in best interest of Quebec. I told them one day that they all come to us when they need us. They all want to be in our bed, but no one wants to marry us. So that's their problem, not mine.
Tell me how you feel about the idea that Mr. Harper is really focusing on the idea of the coalition and your role, as well as others, in forming a coalition. Why does it upset you?
Well, I will say that I will look what would be in the best interest of Quebec after the election. I don't know what will be the results. One thing is sure, Mr. Harper signed that document in 2004 saying that don't launch an election, telling Adriana Clarkson, then Governor General, instead of that, ask the leader of opposition. There's other option. And if there's not an election, the other option, obviously, is to have another government. And having another government meant that the one who finished second, Harper, would have been the Prime Minister. And now he's denouncing that today. But he wrote it. I'm not rewriting history. He is. So...
How do you feel about that?
I mean, I feel that I don't like people lying, but I kept that letter.
Do you think he kept it?
If he lost it, I'll send him a copy.
Thank you.
Merci beaucoup.